But Mark, for you, it's personal. This was your brother. And just so everybody knows, Mark wasn't part of anything that his brother was doing in this regard. He's never been connected to it. There's never been a suggestion. It's not about that. But Mark, you do not believe what the administration, the Trump administration, is putting out about your brother now. Why?
Well, every time they say something or do something to try to quash the fact that he was most likely murdered, they just put their foot further down their mouth. I mean, for instance, Kash Patel in the congressional hearing, he listed his credentials as a prosecutor and other such things, and he said that it was a suicide. He said, you know a suicide when you see it. That's basically what he said. So the questions that popped into my mind was, first of all, number one, how many suicides has he seen? Number one. Two, is he a forensic pathologist? Does he have a medical degree? Does he have a certificate that he passed a CPR course? Does he have a Boy Scout merit badge for first aid? What is he basing his expertise on? Contrast that to Dr. Roman, who was a city pathologist who did the autopsy. She came out of the autopsy and said she couldn't call it a suicide because it looked too much like a homicide. Dr. Michael Barden, who was there on my behalf, who witnessed the autopsy, also concurred that it looked more like a homicide than a suicide. Now, was Kash Patel in the autopsy room? No. Was Kash Patel in the prison when they found Jeffrey? No, I don't think so. And if he was there, that raises even a bigger question. So every time they say something, when Kash Patel came out with that statement, I laughed at how stupid it was. And then they just released this video. This you're going to like. After the death, a few days after the death, Bill Barr, the Attorney General, said he saw that video and he saw that nobody went in or out of the tier, and that convinced him it was a suicide. And I heard that and I realized how stupid that was, because no one could get to that door, go in, kill somebody, leave completely undetected. So that's like an asinine concept. So if Jeff was killed, he was either killed by somebody on the tier or when they locked up the tier. So that's one part of it. Now, I asked to get the footage from that same camera on the Freedom of Information Act from 10 o'clock the night before until noon the following morning. That would show who locked up the tier, who were the last people on that tier. And in the morning, it would show, Michael Thomas going in the guard and finding the body, and it would show what the situation was when they removed the body from the tier. I was initially told I couldn't get that footage because it was still an open investigation. Okay, I understand that. But then when the investigation was over, I asked for that footage again, okay? And I was now told that the cameras that were operating don't show that area.
That's right.
I have this in writing from the Bureau of Prisons, that the cameras that were operating
I remember.
don't show that. And I was very specific about the footage, and the same footage that Bill Barr saw.
No, Mark, listen, I get it. I get it. And the transparency wasn't there. And then they said that there was a malfunction. Then they said they weren't coordinated. And look, I get why you guys are upset about what's happening here. But I can tell you this, it's not over. And it's not about what I think or don't think about the situation. That's not relevant. The process isn't over. Liz, thank you. We'll be in touch whenever you want. You know how to get me. Take care. We'll keep talking. Mark Epstein, we're always a call away.
Let me ask you a question that for some reason seems to have sunk beneath the waves. The JFK story, 62 years ago, the president's murdered. It's pretty clear that the story we were told isn't true. And it bothers people because it gets to a core question, which is the president capable of making independent decisions, or is there a threat of physical violence against all American presidents that persists? What is that? Why have these been secret for so long?
Look, the idea of the deep state to me is a convenience more than it is a reality. It's a boogeyman. Why don't they put it out? Because institutions protect themselves, Tucker, as we both know.
Really?
And there is clearly information in those files that are going to make the CIA look bad.
Just the CIA?
Well, whatever. Different
agencies.
No,
not whatever. I mean,
I don't know because I haven't seen
it. So here's...
But it could be the FBI, it could be the CIA.
Okay, so I've always thought that. And then in January, there was a scramble over who's going to get what jobs in the new administration. And at one point, there was someone who was being discussed for a job in the intel world, and a member of the SSCI, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, Senate Intel Committee, went to the people making the decision and said, you cannot hire this person because this person will be certain to push for the release of the JFK files. So this is in 2025, less than 2 months ago, and you have a sitting member of the United States Senate whose main goal is to keep those files secret. And then you have to ask yourself, what is that?
Yeah.
Exactly. Why?
Yeah.
Why? The CIA has already been discredited. So if you're telling me that 6 weeks ago, a member of the United States Senate was trying to keep someone out of a job in order to keep these files secret, that is to protect the CIA, I don't believe that for a second.
So what do you think it is?
I don't know. But this is, I mean, there's no one at the CIA who is involved.
Then.
Actually, yeah, who's involved in the Kennedy assassination. There's no one in America who's involved in the Kennedy assassination.
So here's what I know. First of all, I don't believe that the CIA has been completely discredited. I believe in the institutions. They have to be checked. You know, the media used to be in the business of checking the institutions. Now we're in the business of like defending them tacitly because we have a president that attacks them all the time. But so Mike Pompeo gets in there. He's in charge of the CIA. Trump says, I'm releasing the files.
Right.
Okay. Somebody says something to Mike Pompeo that he then goes to the president of the United States and says, you can't release these things. And Trump acknowledges it. Now, do I believe that Trump did it under threat? No. I think that Trump just decided that whatever he was being told made sense.
But it's, and I'm not even speaking of Trump or Pompeo, who's a very sinister person. And you're absolutely right. Pompeo was the driver behind that. But who's driving Pompeo? The story doesn't make sense. And by the way, we have the file numbers of most of the files that have not been disclosed. So it's like Trump issues an executive order on January 23rd saying you're going to release this stuff. They kind of can't not release it. And yet now it's the first week of March and they haven't released it. So pressure is currently being applied on the administration not to release those files.
It seems that way.
By whom?
I don't know. I don't believe it's the Rockefellers, the Pope, and
I'm not even guessing. All I'm saying is we can say with certainty that there is a force acting on these people, a very serious force, to the point where they're embarrassing themselves because they promised they'd release this and they haven't.
But it's not just that, right? Now we get this weird story about the Epstein files. Like, who even cares? You know what I mean? Like, who? I want it released. I believe in transparency. But A.G. Bondi, I don't have any reason to be anti-A.G. Bondi. And she says she's going to release the files. Now, then there's a story about, well, the New York FBI, they hid all the files. And then we're going to have to get them. We're going to fire this guy who's supposedly, by most accounts, is a pretty solid guy that they had quit. Well, where are the files? Where are they? And because I thought Trump was the antidote to this. And where's your boy Kash Patel? I mean, he went in there to supposedly bust all this up.
I can't answer that.
He put out this weird tweet, you know, that was very general, like, you know, things are going to change and we're going to do this. And after we learned that someone under his control now, right, because he's the head of the FBI, in that office that's under him, why wasn't he there? Why didn't he go there and say, give me the files, give them to me?
Weren't you just saying the deep state's not real?
I don't know. I don't believe in the deep state as a boogeyman. What the hell is
going on?
But look, they're his guys. I'm just saying, why didn't he go there and say, give me the file?
I can't answer that question. I think it's a great question. But let's just use logic for 1 second. Clearly, if you watch this, in my case, for the same as you, 35 years, watching this stuff carefully, and somebody, you know, gets into office, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing, and then like 5 days later, they're like, well, actually, someone has called that person to say, there's something you didn't know. Here are the consequences of doing that. Someone has applied very serious pressure on this person. Pressure so serious that that person is willing to humiliate himself.
So wait a minute. Here's the part I don't
So
understand.
who's that person exerting the pressure?
But you are uniquely qualified to get this answer because one of us can call the president of the United States right now and ask him. And the other one is me. So why don't you know?
That's a great question.
It's the only kind I ask.
So what I brought to it was the knowledge that a member of the Senate Intel Committee, I'm not guessing, called over and said, you cannot appoint this person.
So why don't you expose that person, first of all, so we can start chasing after him?
Tom Cotton of Arkansas did that.
Tom Cotton?
Yes, correct.
And did you ask him?
I haven't. No, I haven't asked him.
I mean, what the hell's going on with you?
I'd like to. And
kind of makes people suspicious of you, by the way.
Go
because
ahead.
if you know that Tom Cotton said you can't pick this person,
that is correct.
And then you didn't go to him and find out why?
Well, I need to sit down with him, and I'm not sure that he'll do an interview with me.
With you?
I'm waiting.
You are like the spirit animal of that administration.
No. But it's a fair look. It's a fair question, and the answer is, I hadn't thought to do that. And there's a lot going on, and I've been distracted, and I've kind of been.
Now I think you're part of the deep state, and just like that,
think that I probably wouldn't be saying any of this. I was part of the deep state,
unless that's what they would do, is make me think that it exists, but you're not sure because it's actually you.
Here's my point.
Please.
I am really concerned, not just because, I am curious and I want to get to the bottom of mysteries, which is true, but I'm really concerned that the failure to disclose big things like details about the murder of a president in a democratic country, republic, that will convince people that our system itself is fake. And it's kind of hard to argue that it's real.
I totally
agree. If you
agree.
can't even know who killed the president.
Transparency is trust.
62 years later, Mike Pompeo was working to keep American citizens from knowing who murdered their president?
And even with UAPs or UFOs, whatever terminology you want, we couldn't get more information. These things are all over the place. Sure, some are helicopters, some are fixed wing. Okay, not all of them. And they don't know? Of course they know.
Well, but what are they, do you think?
I don't know what they are. The point is that they know, and they won't tell us things. I think it is anathema to democracy.
Of course I agree with everything you're saying except one specific point, which is I'm not sure they know.
They have programmed. They certainly know more than we do. Put it that way.
They do. They may know that they don't really know, which is the scariest thing of all.
Well, again, these are your people. Why don't you talk to them? They love you.
Oh my gosh, I have. And
so what do you got
and
for
I
me?
think
come all the way down here.
We don't
cross
know.
all these
we
bridges.
don't know. And I think that's kind of the scarier answer is
flying over military bases,
shutting them down,
and you
shutting down military.
Yeah, and
bases.
you don't shoot them down, and then figure out what it was.
Well, maybe you can't. So that's. So look, I mean, I think we're getting to the same answer if there is a very obvious mystery that's publicly known, there's public pressure to solve the mystery, to divulge what you know, and you don't.
Yes.
Then there's a real reason behind it.
That's why we test ideas here with better minds. And I have Stephen A. Smith with me tonight, and I want to get his take on what we're seeing with Epstein and ICE and everything else going on. Happy Friday, and thank you for being here.
Happy Friday. What's going on, Big Time? How are you?
So, wow, better than I deserve. What do you make of the struggle of ICE versus whatever we want to call this movement on the left that has decided to match ferocity with the right?
I think it's foolish. I think that ultimately it plays right into President Donald Trump's hands. Because if you're the left, you may be taking the position, you may think you're taking the moral position, but the reality is on too many occasions we've seen them try to utilize certain issues to foment a level of support, to curry favor with constituents out there who may be undecided, who may be a bit suspect about them. You can call it an evasive tactic on their part or effort to gain a support that evidently we all see that they've lost at least to some degree, and they're fighting the good fight on this issue. But the reality is that the election showed us that America has spoken on this particular issues, and while we may not want children being taken away from their parents, separated from their parents and things of that nature, we certainly didn't want open borders where over 12 million people crossed the borders in the United States of America, because we felt that it had a detrimental effect on this country. And so the American voter has spoken about that regard, and what they've said is that the right in their position is closer to a reality that we want in this country than the reality that the left was preaching. And when they send that kind of message, and then your response or your retort thereafter in the aftermath of the election, obviously, is to take this route where you have a representative or an elected official out of Maryland going all the way to El Salvador to talk to somebody, but there's stuff going on right here at home that he couldn't find the time for. This is the kind of stuff that is fodder for the right, and they're going to use to their advantage any chance they get.
And they're just way too quiet. You want to care about January 6th, you should. but they're being way too quiet about things that they'd be really loud about if you flip the sides. So we're going to take a break. Stephen A. is going to come back with me, and we're going to talk about a story that we do not see the same way, but I want to ask him a question that he should not answer until we come back. Any chance that you would join Andrew Yang and Elon Musk with this new party that they're starting? Don't answer. We'll be right back. All right, I'm back with Stephen A. Smith. Is there a chance that someone like an SAS enterprise would want to be in league with this new party?
If the party put their muscle and their money behind me and took a step back, sure. But I certainly wouldn't be on an even playing field with them, I tell you that much, because I don't think they are a winning formula. Andrew Yang, major respect for him. A tech billionaire, somebody very smart, very articulate. I like him as a person, but do I think that he's going to curry favor with the majority of voters? No. Elon Musk, I think his ship has sailed. He had his moment in the sun. Ultimately, he's had a falling out, and obviously in that particular battle, it looks like Trump is winning by a mile. You think about the past, the Ross Perot's of the world, former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz. You look at Ralph Nader. You look at Ross Perot, like I said, and others. A third-party system, a situation like that usually doesn't win. And I think that part of the reason is that the objective for them is to be separate and apart and completely independent of Democrats and Republicans, not understanding that in this two-party system that we have in the United States of America, it is clearly what America has embraced. And I'm not saying that you have to be that always, but you have to show a willingness to do business with both parties in order to be successful in the eyes of the American people. And the reason why they haven't been able to pull it off is because they've been marketing and advertising themselves as a reprieve from what has ailed us as a nation, instead of saying the reprieve would be my ability to ingratiate myself with both parties so we can get things done on a fair and equitable basis that would benefit all Americans, not just one segment of this population.
I respect the analysis. But we don't really have that conversation very often, right? Because we allow ourselves to be distracted by conspiracies and scandals, because it works better, especially when you are really just fighting among fringe factions. So that takes us to one of the granddaddies of all conspiracies, the Epstein lists, the Epstein files. And Trump bought into it. And he, not that he believed or didn't believe, but he went after that issue, and he surrounded himself with people who trafficked in this. And I don't believe it's going away, but you and I disagree about why it's not going away. You say it's not going away because there is a list.
Okay. I believe it's a list. I don't know, but neither do you. And that's where I'm going with this. I understand, first of all, that you know more than me. Hell, I lean on you for half my knowledge, for crying out loud. So let me not sit up here in front and act like I go in a different direction. I got love and respect for you, my brother. But I think that, over the course of watching folks do business, there's this inclination and there's this desire to say, conspiracy theory. Let's stop the nonsense. I'm a more practical brother, my man Chris Cuomo. I'm a more practical brother in this sense. You can't tell me that a sex trafficker, somebody that purportedly engaged in the kind of insidious behavior that this man didn't prepare himself in some way for his comeuppance, per se, one day. And that if that day arrived, he wouldn't be in a position to say, if I go down, there's a whole lot of people that's going down with me. I'm not saying that's the truth. That would be irresponsible for me to say. But I also think it's crazy, not irresponsible, but crazy for you or somebody else to say, nonsense. There's no way that happened. We don't know that. Think about the people we've seen Epstein with now. Think about the people we know that he's known. Think about the connections that he has had. Think about some of the proclivities we have learned, black, white, and everything in between, in terms of perverted men having and what have you, in terms of how they engage, the kind of behavior that they engage in. And I'm supposed to sit back here with a straight face and say, absolutely, positively not. There's no way that happened. Nah, Chris Cuomo, you can do that. I'm not doing that. I got an eyebrow raised, and I'm saying to myself, that combined with the 47th president of the United States, that is known for making sure that he does favors for those who skillfully and adroitly ingratiate themselves with him. It could be January 6th insurrectionists. It could be elected officials. It could be business folks. It could be anything. If you tell this man you love him enough, and then you need a favor, you can't rule out the possibility that he might look out for you. I'm not saying he did anything. I'm saying I'm not ruling out the possibility that Trump did favors, that said, you know what, let it go. I'm not ruling that out.
All right.
No, I'm not.
So I'm not saying you have to rule it out, but you can't just rule it in because it sounds like New Jack City. I remember what Nino Brown said. I remember I saw Nino Brown, but it was a movie for a reason. So here's my suspicion coming the opposite direction, which is Biden and his team had access to this stuff. Trump and his team had access to this stuff. So I believe that we do not have a great institutional history of secret keeping, okay? And if there was bad stuff in there about Donald Trump, it would have come out, okay? And he would have never put these people around him. He would have never given them jobs, people who were in the pro-exposure stuff. Yes, sir.
I'm not saying in any way, I'm not making any kind of implication towards the president himself. I'm saying
I understand.
There's some names. I believe there may be some names on a list.
I believe you, and I agree.
You also got to remember, we also lament what's... Okay. I'm just saying you see names on both sides of the aisle of people with money and influence or whatever.
Yes.
They're helping both sides. They're helping both sides. So it's in everybody's best interest to look out for those names. That's what I'm implying.
But you have these flamethrowers who would love to take those people down, first of all, and they haven't. And I will caution people. We just finished a trial where, when it began, we expected a cavalcade of celebrities that were all involved in one of the oiliest, orgiastic things we've ever heard of before. And at the end of it, Diddy was all alone. And that is with federal prosecutors who had such a hard-on to get him that they had gone to such great lengths, but they couldn't loop in one other celebrity.
They didn't have the evidence.
So maybe on the Epstein side,
well, first of all,
we're in a similar situation.
They probably didn't have the evidence against Diddy. Certainly not to convict him of sex trafficking and racketeering. They were a bit overzealous, to say the least. And the Southern District of New York ended up with egg on their face in a very pronounced and conspicuous way that it's going to take them a very, very long time to recover from, in my estimation. Fair enough. But when we go to the Epstein, the quote-unquote Epstein file, I'm going to tell you what jumps out in my mind, because I'm with you in this regard. We can't rule it out, but we can't definitively say it existed either, because we don't know. And because we don't know, it's irresponsible to say there must be a list, there must be a list. You can say what you believe, you can say what you're suspicious of, but you can't sit up there and speak in definitive terms when you don't have that level of evidence. That's number two. Number three, here's the big thing for me. The far right is actually, they don't realize this, they're making Trump look better and better every day. Think about this. We've got the war with Ukraine and Russia. We've got the whole Israeli-Palestinian situation, Hamas, Hezbollah, even though that's been relatively crushed and what have you. We see all of this stuff going on. You got tariff wars. You've got, purportedly the imminent presence of inflation and all of this stuff, or recession. Everybody talks about these things, okay? You see what's going on with ICE. You see what's going on with our border issues and what have you. And Trump, no matter what you may think about him, if you are on the right, you could not ask for better than what he has done, because what he has done is what they have said they wanted and have been trying to get done for years. And even they admit that he's doing their bidding, yet they're in an uproar because the Department of Justice said there's no client list and the Epstein files case is closed. Really? I mean, I'm wondering I got to talk to Steve Bannon. I got to talk to him. I got to talk to some of these people, the Tucker Carlsons of the world and everybody going crazy over the Epstein client list? That's what you're concerned about? I mean, you've got such a hard-on for the president that you are losing your mind. With all the things, again, if you are a member of the right, you're a centrist, you're a leftist, you can't be too happy with what he's doing. But on the right, you have the audacity to look at this man like he's I don't want to be facetious, but you're treating him like he's the Antichrist right now because of the Epstein list. That's what you're mad about? I do find myself a bit shocked by that. I'm like, damn, I expected folks on the right to have a lot better things to complain about than that. But they really, I don't even want to bring up his name, but you know who it was that was crying on his podcast, a few days ago because the Epstein list wasn't released. Really? Really? That's what Bongino, I respect the hell out of Bongino. I really, really do. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I don't agree with everything he said, but I have profound respect for him and his service to our country, being, doing the things that he has done. But that's what you're reportedly contemplating resigning. You're the deputy director of the FBI. Really?
But you know
because
why?
He's embarrassed.
He wants to go,
because he thought there was a list, and he was saying he was.
I don't know that he ever thought that there was a list, but here is the answer. Okay, this is the answer. See this?
Okay.
This is the answer. Okay. They are upset about the Epstein list. They are obsessed with the Epstein list because it's how they get paid. It has generated gazillions of clicks. And they know that, and that's why they're trafficking in it.
Okay.
And if you look, there is a pattern
I didn't know.
The pod people. The pod people don't waste time on what doesn't pay the way mooks like I do on my show, where I talk about things that I know may not be that popular. That's not what these guys do.
Exactly.
And conspiracies get you paid. That's why they care.
Well, let's take let's take a page as brothers from other mothers, respectfully. Let's take a page and just educate a bunch of folks. All just like all money ain't good money, all clicks ain't good clicks. There's a lot that Chris Cuomo and Stephen A. Smith and others could do to get more clicks. But you know what? Your pride, your integrity, what you stand on, what you stand for matters. Represent yourself, represent your name, your family, whomever, who your employer, etc. It all comes with it. And so if that's the answer, and I didn't think about that, Chris, to be quite honest with you, but if that's the answer, it's pretty damn sad. It's pretty damn sad that that's what it has come to, because I'm just looking at if you're a Republican, if you're the GOP, the big, beautiful bill was just passed. Even though the deficit is going to escalate from $3.3 trillion to over $5 trillion, assuming you believe the Congressional Budget Office and all of this other stuff. With all of these things that's going on, with the 2017 tax cuts reserved, with so much stuff that's going on that the left didn't want to happen, that you on the right said you wanted to happen, with the borders being closed, supposedly that being handled, with migrants being escorted out of this country in droves, according to you, and what you wanted, you're in an uproar off the Epstein list? That's all you've got? It's really, really surprising that this matters. Of course, I think there's a list, but I don't know. I suspect, but I have no knowledge, nor do I care. It's Friday night. I'm getting ready to go out and enjoy myself. I'm getting ready to have a nice weekend. I could give a damn about the Epstein client list. It has no effect on me whatsoever. I have a life. I don't understand for the life of me why this matters so much to these. I'm talking about people losing it. They're crying on camera. They're talking about resignations. They're pissed off about everything. I'm like, really? With all the stuff going on in this country, with all the power that you possess because of the cachet and the influence you have because of your connection to this administration, that's why you upset at Trump? I didn't blame Trump one bit for looking at them and saying, really? That really matters to you? That's really that important? Now, maybe he had a different reason for saying it, trying to be evasive or whatever. I don't know. But I do know this. In the grand scheme of things, it ain't going to affect the lives of over
Nope.
200 to 300 million Americans. I
No.
think we'll be just fine without knowing whether or not there was really a client list. I think we'll be okay. It's unbelievable
Yeah.
that this is a big deal to me. It really is.
Well, and I'll tell you what, it ain't going away anytime soon. You know why? Chicka chinga chicka chicka ching. Everybody's accounts are going to pop the longer they stay mad at it. So we're nowhere near the end of the cycle. Stephen A. Smith, you have a beautiful weekend, and thank you for making your witness here with me. I appreciate
You do the same.
Yes, the files should be released. I'm tired of the government saying that they want to release them. So please just do it.
And it appears that the majority of the people in the United States in most polls would like to see more transparency of the evidence being revealed to them.
Gloria Allred and Epstein accuser Alicia Arden held a new earth-shattering press conference on Jeffrey Epstein today. Ms. Arden says she was a victim of that monster, and for that, she should have all of our sympathies. But here's the thing. Gloria Allred and Alicia Arden failed to name any names or even say there were other men who abused not only her, but any woman trafficked by Epstein. Who were the men who trafficked underage women with Epstein? Who are they? Do they even exist? At this point, we have no reason to believe they do. This is exactly why these calls to release the Epstein files are hot air. There are names in the Epstein files, we know that. But like any investigation, the majority of those names will be people who were mere acquaintances of a despicable pedophile. As painful as it is to say, that is not a crime, and that does not mean your name should be released. Shelby Talcott, Semaphore Politics reporter, Al Mater, former campaign advisor to Hillary Clinton, with us. Al, you were nodding along to me a little bit. You may not agree with me fully.
Well, as a lawyer, when you have files under criminal investigation or as part of grand jury documents, you're not wrong that it's unfair to people to release them writ large.
Has it ever happened before?
Not to my knowledge. And if you do so in whole, you're going to create a list of people that everybody's going to say, see, look at him, look at her, and it creates innuendo and supposition without proof. And that is unfair to those people. The political problem, however, is that the president and his whole team of people at DOJ rode into town saying, we got to release everything, and we're going to.
Yeah, well, to be fair, Shelby, and I think Al's got a point, everybody around Donald Trump kept saying we got to release these. Donald Trump was always sort of on my side of saying that this never done, I'm not really sure. For the White House, how do they make this go away?
I think that's what they're trying to determine right now. I think initially when this all happened, when I talked to White House officials, they thought it was going to go away. They thought that they were going to be able to get the base back on their side and quiet them, as they have really with every issue that has come up when it comes to Donald Trump versus his base. He's always been able to get them back on his side. But I think they very quickly realized this was the one issue that the base is not going to stay quiet on. And so now you're seeing them in real time try to figure out, how do we quiet this down? You saw Donald Trump say, okay, release the grand jury testimony. You saw the DOJ interview Ghislaine Maxwell. Is that going to be enough for the base? I've talked to White House officials who don't think it's going to be enough for the base. So I think the question that the administration is grappling with right now is there a way to make this truly go away, or is the base always going to think that there is some smoking gun that is not yet been released?
And Democrats would love nothing more than for that to continue.
Absolutely. I mean, again, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, everyone came.
Is there an irony here of suddenly Democrats comparing, being so concerned about Jeffrey Epstein when it was Bill Clinton who spent so much time with Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, if consistency were any measure, Leland, we wouldn't have politics.
Okay. That's fair. Okay, look, Donald Trump, I think, realizes this is a problem, and you can kind of see it. Today, he was asked about a report that there was going to be some meeting organized by J.D. Vance of Team Trump to get everyone on the same page. Here's his response.
I think the reporter who reported it needs to get better sources.
Look, the whole thing is a hoax. It's put out by the Democrats because we've had the most successful 6 months in the history of our country. And that's just a way of trying to divert attention to something that's total bullshit.
All right, Al, here's the question. When Democrats could be talking about the economy, they could be talking about how people are feeling. is talking about Epstein really where you want to spend your time?
I mean, you had a guest earlier, the guy who was white man for Harris, who made a very good point that we don't have a good
That didn't work out so well.
Didn't work out so well for her. But the point is, and you ran the clip with Michael Bennett talking about our party, we don't have a message. Yes, that's where we ought to be, but we're not because we don't have one. And so we're talking about this. And it's frankly, our leaders haven't grasped onto the fact that the American people want to talk about affordability, economic malaise, and what are we going to do about it? And right now, we're not giving them anything.
Shelby, in a weird way, is the White House sort of okay with this still existing in the ether because it is a shiny object that Trump can fight against?
To be clear, they're tired of this. They want this to go away.
Right.
But at the same time, I think that they have accepted that this is not going away. And in many ways, they've argued to me, officials have argued to me, that this has sort of died down from its peak and it's manageable now. And so I think now, compared to maybe even a week ago, they're feeling a little bit better. And what you're seeing them try to do is they're still pushing out a ton of other news. That's all intentional. Their theory of the case remains, okay, maybe this doesn't fully go away, but if we can sort of bombard the media and bombard the public with a ton of other news, with tariffs, et cetera, it's going to be okay.
A developing story we are following right now on Capitol Hill. That was House Oversight Committee Chair, Kentucky Republican James Comer. The deposition of former Attorney General Bill Barr, who was AG when convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein died in a prison cell by what was then ruled a suicide. Barr answering a series of questions this morning in the first bipartisan inquiry, which includes a push to release the full unredacted files of the convicted sex offender and one-time Trump associate. Joining me now is Emily Brooks from our partners at thehill.com. Emily, we are hearing the former AG may have left this committee with more questions than answers.
Yes, he did leave. He did not answer really many questions from reporters as he was leaving, but Democrats who were present for the first part of the deposition, including Representative Jasmine Crockett from Texas, said that they are looking to bring in more additional, perhaps, witnesses. She mentioned Alex Acosta, the former labor secretary under Trump, who was the prosecutor who did the deal for Epstein's first conviction back in 2008 that was so highly criticized. And now Chairman James Comer opening the door to potentially more investigation. He did not rule that out. But Bill Barr is only the first of many former federal officials who were subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee amid all of this Epstein furor after the Department of Justice said that they would not release any more information about this. So he is the first to come in for this deposition. There were several more scheduled in the coming months.
All right, so Emily, is there now the thought that the rest of this testimony could end kind of how today's ended, with more questions than answers?
Yeah, there are always more questions at the end of these depositions, usually when they end, so certainly could lead to other lines of inquiry. But aside from this deposition and testimony to the committee, one thing that a lot of people have their eye on is a deadline for the Department of Justice to turn over what was a subpoena for what was the complete unredacted Epstein files from the Department of Justice to the Oversight Committee. That deadline is tomorrow, but Chairman Comer said, you know, this is a lot of materials, a lot of papers that they have to go through, kind of opening the door for that to be delayed. So we'll see what happens on that deadline tomorrow.
And just, Emily, talk more about the fact that this is a bipartisan effort at a time when we do not see a lot of bipartisan cooperation in Washington.
Yeah, I think that, you know, when the Department of Justice and FBI did say that they weren't releasing any more information on this case, that did come up with a lot of outrage from Republicans as well as Democrats. And you saw that on the congressional side really bubble up most in the House Oversight Committee. The Democrats on that panel led a motion to subpoena the Department of Justice for more information. And then Republicans answered with another motion for a subpoena to bring in Bill Barr, former President Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, other former attorneys general, to really, you know, have a big, what is turning out to be a pretty big comprehensive investigation into this that I don't think many people in Congress expected that they would be doing a couple of months ago.
And last question for you, Emily. I mean, is there any indication that those files will be released? Because it certainly has yet to happen.
You know, they have been subpoenaed, so if they are not released, if nothing is transported to the committee, I'm sure Jasmine Crockett did indicate that perhaps Democrats would look into some legal challenges there. Now, what can legally be released and disclosed to the committee? I'm sure that there would be questions about that, and it is a lot of material. I mean, you have seen also the Department of Justice go to the courts and seek to unseal more testimony and records from the Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell cases that have been denied. And so you have concerns about implicating people in this investigation who might be named but are not going to be prosecuted, and there's not really proof that they were involved in wrongdoing. There's a lot of legal issues there.
Still a lot to unfold here. All right, Emily Brooks, live for us there in Washington. Thank you.